I built his empire. He replaced me with his secretary. Now I'm going to destroy everything. The message on Victor's phone was clear. Meet me at the penthouse. Aria wasn't supposed to see it. She wasn't supposed to know anything. For 5 years, she'd been the ghost behind Victor Hale's billion-dollar corporation, the strategist, the architect, the invisible force. And now? She was being erased. But Victor made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the woman who knew every weakness in his armor. If you want to see how far betrayal can push someone, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Hale Tower like it was trying to break through. Arya Stone stood in Victor's private office on the 42nd floor, her reflection ghostly against the storm-darkened glass. She held his phone in her hand, the one he'd left on his desk when he went to that emergency board meeting 20 minutes ago. Meet me at the penthouse. Can't wait anymore. L. The text had come in 3 minutes ago. Arya stared at it until the letters blurred. L. Lena Cross. Victor's 24-year-old secretary with the bright smile and the expensive perfume that lingered in the hallways long after she'd gone. Arya's hands didn't shake. That surprised her. 5 years of marriage, and this was the moment her hands decided to be steady. She scrolled up. The messages went back months. Miss you already. Tonight was perfect. He's working late again, means more time for us. Arya stopped reading. She set the phone down exactly where Victor had left it, screen side up, because she wanted him to know she'd seen it. She wanted him to walk back in and find it there, damning and deliberate. Then she walked out. The elevator descent felt longer than usual, 42 floors, enough time to replay the last 5 years in fractured images. Late nights in this building, her laptop open, restructuring Victor's failing acquisitions, the merger with Castellan Industries, her idea. The pivot to offshore investments, her research, the entire expansion into the European market, her contacts, her language skills, her endless phone calls at 3 in the morning. She'd done it all from the shadows. Victor had insisted. You're too valuable to waste on public appearances, he'd told her once, kissing her forehead like she was something precious. Let me be the face, you be the brain. She'd believed him. God, she'd actually believed him. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. Her heels clicked against concrete as she walked to her car. A Mercedes Victor had bought her 2 years ago. Nothing but the best for my wife, he'd said. Arya got in, started the engine, and sat there. The rain was louder down here, echoing off the concrete pillars. She could hear her own breathing, fast, shallow. She pulled out her own phone and opened her contacts. Her finger hovered over Marco Velez's name. Marco. Victor's biggest competitor. The man who'd been trying to poach her for 3 years, ever since he'd figured out she was the real architect behind Hale Enterprises' sudden rise. He'd offered her a VP position twice. She'd declined both times. Loyalty, she'd told him the last time, at a charity gala where Victor had left her alone to schmooze investors. It matters to me. Marco had smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. Loyalty's a beautiful thing, until it isn't. Arya pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Arya Stone. To what do I owe the pleasure? Is your offer still open? Silence. Then, which offer? The VP position, partnership, whatever you called it. That depends. What changed? Arya watched the rain streak down her windshield. Everything. Ipes. Marco's office was nothing like Victor's. Where Victor favored minimalist steel and glass, Marco had filled his space with dark wood, leather, and books. Actual books, not the decorative kind. It felt lived in, real. He poured her scotch without asking if she wanted it. You look like you need this. Arya took the glass but didn't drink. I need information first. About? Victor's investors. Specifically, the one he's been chasing for the past 6 months. The one he needs to stay solvent. Marco leaned against his desk, studying her. He was older than Victor by maybe 10 years, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes that suggested he actually smiled sometimes. Dante Moretti. The name landed like a stone in still water. The Dante Moretti? Arya asked. Is there another? Everyone knew the name. Dante Moretti had built an empire that straddled the line between legitimate business and something much darker. Casinos, real estate, private security firms that looked legal on paper but operated with the kind of efficiency that made people nervous. He was wealthy, powerful, and notoriously private. Victor's been trying to get a meeting with him for months, Marco said. Moretti's looking to diversify, clean up some of his investments. Victor thinks landing him would legitimize Hale Enterprises, bring in the kind of capital that would make him untouchable. Has he gotten the meeting? Not yet. Moretti doesn't meet with just anyone. Arya finally took a sip of scotch. It burned. I need to meet him first. Marco's eyebrows rose. You want to meet Dante Moretti? Yes. May I ask why? Because Victor built his empire on my work, and I'm going to take it apart piece by piece. But I need leverage. I need someone Victor can't touch, can't intimidate, can't buy off. She met Marco's eyes. I need someone more dangerous than he is. Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same sharp smile from the gala. You've changed. No, Arya said. I just stopped pretending. Getting a meeting with Dante Moretti turned out to be easier than expected. Marco made a call. 2 days later, Arya received an invitation to dinner at Aurelio, the kind of restaurant that didn't have prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. She wore black, a dress she'd bought that afternoon, simple and expensive, nothing like the soft florals and pastels Victor preferred on her. Her hair was pulled back, no jewelry except small diamond studs. She looked like someone who meant business. Dante Moretti was already seated when she arrived. The maitre d' led her to a private corner table where a man in his early 40s sat with the kind of stillness that came from absolute confidence. Dark suit, darker eyes, and a face that would have been handsome if it weren't so carefully controlled. He stood when she approached. Old-fashioned manners. Miss Stone. Mr. Moretti. Please, sit. She did. A waiter appeared, poured wine, disappeared. Marco speaks highly of you, Dante said. Marco wants something from me. Of course he speaks highly of me. Dante's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Fair. What do you want from me? Arya appreciated the directness. Protection, legitimacy, access to circles that would be closed to me otherwise. In exchange for information, strategy, the complete architectural breakdown of Hale Enterprises, including every weakness, every hidden debt, every skeleton in every closet. She paused. And I know where all of them are buried because I'm the one who buried them. Dante took a sip of wine, his expression unreadable. You want revenge on your husband. I want justice. There's a difference. Is there? Revenge is emotional. Justice is mathematical. This time he did smile. You're interesting, Ms. Stone. I'm useful, Mr. Moretti. There's a difference. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, measuring eyes. Victor Hale has been trying to meet with me for 6 months. He's offered me very generous terms. He's desperate. Desperate people make generous offers they can't sustain. And you can? I can do better than sustain. I can show you exactly how to take apart his company and redistribute the valuable pieces. I can show you which assets are actually worth something and which ones are smoke and mirrors. Arya met his gaze steadily. I built that company, Mr. Moretti. I know exactly how to unbuild it. Dante was quiet. The restaurant hummed with low conversation around them, crystal and silver and money. What kind of protection are you looking for? He asked finally. The kind that comes with a ring. His eyebrows rose slightly. You want to marry me? I want people to think I'm going to marry you. I need to walk into rooms that would be closed to me otherwise. I need Victor to see me as untouchable. I need his investors, his partners, his entire world to see me standing next to someone they're afraid of. She paused. It would be a business arrangement, temporary, mutually beneficial. You're asking me to pretend to be your fiancé. Yes. That's bold. That's strategic. Dante studied her for another long moment, then he picked up his wine glass. Tell me about the gala. Arya felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. Which gala? The one Hale Enterprises hosts every year. The one where Victor parades his success in front of every major investor on the East Coast. It's in 6 weeks, and Victor will be there with his secretary. It wasn't a question, but Arya answered anyway. Yes. What do you want to happen at that gala, Ms. Stone? Arya thought about the text messages. Tonight was perfect. She thought about 5 years of late nights and early mornings, of building something from nothing while Victor took the credit. She thought about being kept in the shadows, being told it was for her own good. I want him to see me, she said quietly, really see me, not as the woman he married, not as the ghost behind his success. I want him to see what he threw away, and I want everyone else in that room to see it too. Dante nodded slowly. Then we have an agreement. He extended his hand across the table. Arya took it. His grip was firm, his palm warm. One condition, he said, not letting go. When this is over, you work for me. Not as decoration, not as a secret weapon, as a partner. Why? Because I don't surround myself with people who can't match my ambition, and you, Ms. Stone, are far more ambitious than you've let yourself believe. Arya felt something shift inside her, something that had been locked down for so long she'd forgotten it was there. Deal, she said. The next 4 weeks were a blur of activity. Arya moved out of the penthouse she'd shared with Victor, not to an apartment of her own, but to one of Dante's properties, a sleek high-rise in the financial district. It was easier to sell the story if they were living together. Victor noticed her absence. Of course he did. He called 17 times the first day. She didn't answer. On the 18th call, she picked up. Where the hell are you? His voice was tight with anger. I'm leaving you, Victor. Silence. Then, what? I'm filing for divorce. You'll receive the papers tomorrow. Arya, what? This is insane. Whatever you think is happening, I don't think anything. I know. Her voice was calm, flat. I saw the messages. Another silence, longer this time. It's not what you think, he said finally. Don't insult me. Arya, listen. She hung up. The papers arrived at Hale Enterprises the next morning. Victor called again. She blocked his number. He showed up at Marco's office. Security turned him away. He sent flowers. She donated them to a hospital. He sent emails. She filtered them to spam. And through it all, she worked. God, did she work. With Marco's resources and Dante's protection, Arya began the systematic deconstruction of everything she'd built. She pulled files, contracts, NDAs, documents she'd signed, deals she'd structured, intellectual property that legally belonged to her but had been registered under Hale Enterprises because Victor had asked her to, and she'd trusted him. You need a lawyer, Marco said, watching her work through a mountain of paperwork in his conference room. I have 3. You need better ones. Dante appeared in the doorway. She needs Jessica Chen. Arya looked up. The Jessica Chen? Is there another? Jessica Chen was a legend in corporate law. The woman who'd taken down 2 Fortune 500 CEOs and made them pay for every penny they'd stolen from their companies. She was expensive, ruthless, and very, very good. She doesn't take cases like this, Arya said. She'll take yours. Dante stepped into the room. I called in a favor. Why? Because I protect my investments. There was something in the way he said it, not possessive, but absolute. Arya felt a strange flutter in her chest and pushed it away. This was business, just business. Jessica Chen arrived 2 days later, a small woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She spent 3 hours reviewing Arya's documents, asking questions that cut straight to the bone. At the end, she closed the last folder and looked at Arya. You have a case, a strong one. How strong? Strong enough that Victor Hale will wish he'd signed a prenup. Arya felt something like satisfaction, cold and precise. What do I need to do? Let me do my job. Keep gathering evidence. And whatever you're planning for that gala, Jessica smiled, thin and predatory. Make it good. The gala was 3 weeks away when Arya received the invitation. Engraved cardstock, heavy and expensive. You are cordially invited to the annual Hale Enterprises Gala. It had been sent to Dante's address. Of course it had. Victor would have seen the guest list, would have seen Dante Moretti's name, would have salivated at the possibility of finally getting a meeting with him. What he didn't know was that Dante's +1 was his soon-to-be ex-wife. "Are you ready for this?" Dante asked. They were in his office. He'd insisted she take the desk by the window, said the light was better. She'd protested once, then given up. Dante didn't make suggestions lightly. "No," Arya said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." Fear is a good motivator. I'm not afraid of Victor. I didn't say you were. Dante leaned against the edge of the desk. I said fear is a good motivator. Fear of going back to who you were. Fear of letting him win. Fear of staying invisible. Arya looked up at him. Is that what motivates you? Sometimes. He paused. Mostly I'm motivated by the satisfaction of watching terrible people realize they're not as untouchable as they thought. That's very philosophical for a man in your line of work. My line of work requires a lot of philosophy. Otherwise, it's just violence and money. Arya smiled despite herself. Over the past few weeks, she'd discovered that Dante Moretti was not what she'd expected. He was dangerous. Yes, she'd seen enough to know that, but he was also thoughtful, deliberate, and surprisingly funny in a dry, deadpan way that caught her off guard. "What happens after the gala?" she asked. "You become very rich, very powerful, and very free. And you?" "I acquire a very talented partner who's going to help me expand into markets I've been trying to break into for years." He studied her. "Unless you're having second thoughts." "No second thoughts." "Good. Because I already bought your dress." Arya blinked. "You what?" "The dress. For the gala. I had it commissioned." At her expression, he added, "What? You think I'm going to let you walk into that room wearing something off the rack? You're my fiancé. Appearances matter. I can buy my own dress." "I know you can, but I wanted to buy this one." He pushed off the desk and walked to a garment bag hanging on the back of the door. "Consider it a gift." Arya stood slowly, crossed the room, unzipped the bag. The dress inside was midnight blue, almost black, with a neckline that would make people look twice and a cut that suggested power rather than seduction. It was perfect. "Dante, try it on. If you hate it, we'll find something else." She didn't hate it. When she emerged from the bathroom 15 minutes later, Dante's expression shifted, just slightly, just enough for her to notice. "Well?" she asked. "You're going to destroy him," Dante said quietly. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. 2 weeks before the gala, Victor made one last attempt. He showed up at Dante's building, somehow got past security, knocked on the apartment door at 11 o'clock at night. Arya was alone. Dante was at a business dinner across town. She looked through the peephole, saw Victor standing there in a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, his hair perfect, his face composed. She opened the door. "Arya." He said her name like a prayer. "Please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." She should have said no, should have closed the door. But she needed this, needed to see him one last time before she took everything away. 5 minutes, she said. He stepped inside, looked around the apartment, the expensive furniture, the city views, the evidence of a life that had nothing to do with him. "This is where you've been living?" "Yes." "With him?" "Yes." Victor's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was trusting you. It was a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything." Arya laughed, actually laughed. "A moment of weakness that lasted 6 months? I was going to end it. You were going to do nothing, Victor. You were going to keep her, and keep me, and keep pretending you were the genius behind Hale Enterprises when we both know the truth. I never said you didn't contribute." "Contribute?" Arya's voice went cold. I built that company. Every major deal, every expansion, every strategy that saved you from bankruptcy. That was me. And you let me do it from the shadows because it was convenient. I protected you. The board, the investors, they would have eaten you alive. You mean they would have realized you were nothing without me? The words hung between them like a blade. Victor's face went pale, then red. You ungrateful. I made you. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing I didn't earn. And now I'm taking it back. You can't. He stepped closer, and for the first time, Arya saw something dangerous in his eyes. I'll bury you. You think Dante Moretti scares me? I'll expose every deal, every contract, every questionable decision you made that I made under your direction, with your approval, in your name. Arya smiled. See, that's the problem with having a ghost do your dirty work, Victor. The ghost knows where all the bodies are buried. I'll fight you. I'll tie you up in court for years. You'll lose, and you know it. The door opened behind them. Dante stepped inside, took in the scene. Victor standing too close, Arya backed against the wall, but not backing down. Mr. Hale, Dante said pleasantly, I don't remember inviting you. Victor turned. For a moment, Arya saw genuine fear cross his face. Then he masked it, straightened his shoulders. This is between me and my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, Arya corrected. And she's made it clear she doesn't want to talk to you, Dante continued. So I'm going to ask you nicely, once, to leave. This isn't over, Victor said, looking at Arya. Yes, she said quietly. It is. Victor left. Dante closed the door, locked it. Are you all right? He asked. Arya realized she was shaking, not from fear, from rage, from the sheer force of everything she'd been holding back. I'm fine. You're not. Sit down. She did. Dante poured her scotch, the good stuff, the bottle he kept in the cabinet by the window. He's scared, Dante said, handing her the glass. Good. Scared men are dangerous. So are angry women. Dante smiled. True. They sat in silence for a while. The city glittered beyond the windows, millions of lights, millions of lives, all of them moving forward. 2 weeks, Arya said finally. 2 weeks? Dante agreed. I can do this. I know you can. He paused. But you don't have to do it alone. Arya looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd agreed to a fake engagement with a stranger, who'd given her resources and protection and asked for nothing in return except the chance to work with her afterward. Why are you doing this? She asked. Doing what? Helping me. You could have just given me information. Let me destroy Victor on my own. Why get involved? Dante was quiet for a moment. Because I know what it's like to build something from nothing and watch someone else take credit. I know what it's like to be underestimated because of who you are, or where you come from, or who you choose to trust. He met her eyes, and I know what it's like to finally say enough. Something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than business arrangements and fake engagements. Thank you, Arya said. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we've won. The night before the gala, Arya couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of Dante's apartment, her apartment now, she supposed, and watched the city pulse with life. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would walk into that ballroom on Dante Moretti's arm and watch Victor's face when he realized what she'd become. Tomorrow, she would stop being invisible. Her phone buzzed, a message from Jessica Chen. Evidence is ready, see you tomorrow. Another buzz. Marco. The board is going to implode. I'll bring popcorn. Another. Dante. Can't sleep either. Meet me on the roof. Arya grabbed a jacket and took the elevator up. Dante was already there, leaning against the railing, looking out over the city. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. He looked younger like this, less controlled. Nervous? He asked without turning around. Terrified. Good sign. How do you figure? Means you care about the outcome. Means you're not doing this just for revenge. Arya joined him at the railing. What am I doing it for then? Justice, freedom, the chance to build something that's actually yours. He glanced at her. Also revenge, but that's secondary. She laughed. You're terrible at pep talks. I'm not trying to give you a pep talk. I'm trying to remind you why you're doing this. He turned to face her fully. Victor Hale took 5 years of your life, your work, your trust. Tomorrow, you're taking it all back plus interest. That's not revenge. That's mathematics. Justice is mathematical, Arya said, remembering their first conversation. Exactly. They stood there in silence, the wind cold and sharp this high up. Arya thought about tomorrow, about the dress, the gala, the moment when Victor would see her and understand what he'd lost. What if it doesn't work? She asked quietly. It'll work. But what if... Arya. Dante's voice was firm. It will work. You've done everything right. The evidence is bulletproof. The lawyers are ready. The board is already questioning Victor's leadership because of the rumors Marco's been carefully spreading. Jessica has lined up 3 major investors ready to pull funding the moment we give the signal. He paused. You've built the trap perfectly. All you have to do tomorrow is spring it. And if he fights back, let him. Fighting will only make him look desperate. Dante's expression softened slightly. You're not the woman he married anymore, Arya. You're not even the woman who walked into my office 6 weeks ago. You've become something Victor can't touch, can't manipulate, can't control. And tomorrow, you're going to show him exactly what that means. Arya felt something settle in her chest, something solid and unshakable. I'm ready, she said. I know. They stayed on the roof until dawn started to lighten the eastern sky, talking about everything and nothing, about the gala, about what came after, about the company Dante wanted to build with her help. And for the first time in 5 years, Arya felt like herself again. Not Victor's wife, not the ghost behind someone else's success, just Arya, sharp and calculating and ready to take back everything that was hers. The gala was in 12 hours. She couldn't wait. The morning arrived with too much sunlight. Arya woke at 6, her body buzzing with adrenaline she couldn't burn off. She tried breakfast, managed half a piece of toast, gave up. Coffee helped. The third cup more than the first 2. By 8, the apartment had filled with people. Jessica Chen arrived first, carrying 2 briefcases and wearing a suit that probably cost more than Arya's car. Behind her came a paralegal named David, young and nervous, who set up a mobile command center on the dining room table. We go live at 7 tonight, Jessica said, spreading documents across every available surface. Victor takes the stage at 7:30 for his keynote. We hit him at 7:45. Why wait 15 minutes? Arya asked. Because we want him comfortable, confident. Mid-speech is perfect. He'll be riding high, thinking he's won. Jessica's smile was cold. The fall hurts more from that height. Marco showed up at 9 with pastries nobody ate and energy Arya envied. He looked like a kid on Christmas morning. I've waited 3 years to watch Victor Hale crash and burn, he said, pouring himself coffee. This is going to be beautiful. It's going to be brutal, Jessica corrected. Same thing. Dante emerged from his room at 9:30, already dressed except for his jacket and tie. He took one look at Arya, still in pajamas, hair uncombed, coffee cup trembling slightly in her hands, and steered her toward the bedroom. Get ready, he said quietly. Take your time. This doesn't start without you. The bathroom was absurd, all marble and chrome and a shower that had 6 different settings. Arya stood underwater hot enough to hurt and tried to organize her thoughts. Tonight she would see Victor. Tonight she would see Lena. Tonight she would stand in front of 400 people and systematically dismantle 5 years of lies. Her hands shook when she turned off the water. The dress hung on the back of the door, midnight blue and perfect. Arya stared at it for a full minute before she could make herself put it on. The fabric was cool against her skin, the fit so precise it felt like armor. Hair and makeup took an hour. She kept it simple. Hair down in loose waves, makeup natural except for the lipstick, which was dark red and absolutely deliberate. She looked older than she had 6 weeks ago, sharper, like someone who knew exactly what they were worth. When she emerged, Dante was waiting in the living room, fully dressed now. He looked up, went very still. What? Arya asked. Nothing. You look... He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. Ready. Jessica glanced over from her document fortress. Good. We need photos. Photos? For the announcement. Dante Moretti's mysterious new fiancée. We leaked them 30 minutes before the gala. Let the gossip build. She nodded to David, who pulled out a professional camera. Just a few shots. Make it look natural. Natural was harder than it sounded. Arya felt stiff, artificial. Dante's hand on her waist was warm through the fabric of the dress, and she had to remind herself this was business, just business, even when he leaned in close enough that she could smell his cologne. Relax, he murmured. You're not going to war. You've already won. Then why does it feel like I'm about to throw up? Because you're human. David took maybe 50 photos. Jessica examined them on his laptop, selected 3, and sent them to someone whose contact name was just a series of numbers. Done, she said. These will hit social media at 6:30. By the time we arrive, everyone will know who you are. Arya's stomach dropped. Everyone? Everyone who matters. Trust me. Half the people at that gala spend their lives on their phones. They'll see the photos, they'll see you walk in with Dante, and they'll start doing math. Jessica's expression was predatory. Victor's going to know you're there before you're through the door. Good, Arya said, surprised by how much she meant it. The afternoon crawled. Arya tried to read, couldn't focus, tried to watch television, gave up after 10 minutes. Dante worked at his desk, making phone calls in Italian that sounded either very important or very illegal. Maybe both. At 4, Marco left to get ready. At 5, Jessica and David packed up their mobile office. See you there, Jessica said at the door. Remember, you don't say anything until I give the signal. Just smile, look beautiful, and let them wonder. What if Victor approaches me before boo? Then Dante handles it. That's what you're paying him for. She paused. Well, not paying, but you know what I mean. After they left, the apartment felt too quiet. Arya stood at the window and watched the city transition from day to evening, lights beginning to glow as the sun dropped. You should eat something, Dante said behind her. Can't. Then drink water. I don't need you passing out mid-revenge. She turned. He was holding out a glass. She took it, drank, realized she was desperately thirsty. Thank you, she said. For water? For all of it. Dante studied her for a moment. You're going to be fine tonight. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He checked his watch. Car's coming in 30 minutes. You ready? No, Arya thought, but she said, yes. The photos went live at 6:30, exactly as Jessica had promised. Arya's phone started buzzing immediately. Texts, calls, notifications flooding in so fast she had to turn it off. Let them wonder, Dante said. We'll deal with it tomorrow. The car arrived at 6:45, not a limo, which would have been too obvious, but a sleek black Mercedes with a driver who didn't ask questions. Arya slid into the back seat, the dress pooling around her knees. Dante got in beside her. The drive to the Grandview Hotel took 20 minutes. Arya watched the city slip past. Familiar streets, familiar buildings, everything the same except her. She thought about the last time she'd attended this gala, 2 years ago. Victor had introduced her to exactly 3 people all night, then spent the rest of the evening networking while she smiled and nodded in corners. What are you thinking? Dante asked. That I should have done this 2 years ago. You weren't ready 2 years ago. How do you know? Because you're barely ready now. At her look, he added, that's not an insult. What you're about to do, walking back into Victor's world and taking it apart in front of everyone, that takes a specific kind of strength, the kind you only develop after you've been broken. I'm not broken. No, but you were. And now you're something Victor can't anticipate. That's why this works.
Seriously,
Sai? The Grandview Hotel rose into view. 50 floors of glass and steel, lit up like a beacon. Cars lined the circular drive. Valet attendants in red jackets opening doors, security checking invitations. Arya watched women in designer gowns and men in $1,000 suits file through the entrance. 2 years ago, she'd felt like an imposter here. Now she felt like she owned the place. Their car pulled up. The valet opened Dante's door first. He stepped out, buttoned his jacket, then turned and offered Arya his hand. She took it. The cameras started flashing before she was fully out of the car. Arya froze. She hadn't expected cameras, hadn't thought about photographers, but Dante's hand tightened on hers, steadying. "Smile," he murmured. "Give them something to talk about." So she did. She smiled like she owned the night, like she'd planned every second of this, like she wasn't terrified and furious and barely holding herself together. They walked into the hotel through a tunnel of light. The lobby was worse. More cameras, more people, everyone turning to look. Arya heard the whispers immediately. "Is that Dante Moretti? Who's the woman?" "I saw the photos. That's his fiancée." "Since when does Moretti have a fiancée?" "She looks familiar. Do we know her?" Dante kept walking, his hand on the small of Arya's back, guiding her through the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to be anywhere. Security waved them through without checking their invitation. Of course they did. Dante Moretti didn't wait in lines. The ballroom was on the third floor, a massive space with cathedral ceilings and chandeliers the size of cars. Already it was packed with people Arya recognized from business magazines and society pages. Old money, new money, and the kind of dangerous money that didn't get discussed in polite company. Victor's world. Except tonight, it wasn't just his anymore. "There, Dante said quietly, nodding toward the far side of the room. Arya followed his gaze and saw Victor standing near the bar, surrounded by a cluster of executives. He was laughing at something someone said, champagne in hand, perfectly at ease. He hadn't seen her yet. "Where's Lena?" Arya asked. 3:00, blue dress. Arya looked. Lena Cross stood near the silent auction tables, wearing a dress that was trying too hard to be sophisticated and failing. She was young. God, she was so young, with that kind of eager brightness that came from thinking the world was full of opportunities instead of traps. For a second, Arya almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Mr. Moretti." A man in his 60s approached, hand extended. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Richard." Dante shook his hand. "Last-minute decision. I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Arya Stone." Richard's eyes widened. "Stone. As in Arya Stone, Dante said smoothly. "I don't believe she needs another qualifier." It was a subtle power move, establishing that Arya was someone in her own right, not just Victor's ex-wife. Richard got the message. "A pleasure," he said, kissing Arya's hand. "I've heard remarkable things about your strategic work." "Have you?" Arya kept her voice neutral. "Oh yes, the Castellan merger alone was brilliant, saved that company from collapse." Arya felt something cold settle in her chest. "Thank you." Richard wandered off. Two more people approached almost immediately, a married couple who owned a chain of luxury hotels, then a venture capitalist, then a hedge fund manager. Each time Dante introduced Arya the same way, "My fiancée, Arya Stone." Each time the reaction was the same, surprise, curiosity, and a dawning realization that she was more than just a pretty face on Dante's arm. They were starting to remember her work, starting to connect the dots. Across the room, Victor was still holding court, oblivious. "He hasn't seen you yet." Marco appeared at Arya's elbow, champagne in hand. "This is killing me. When does he notice?" "Patience, Dante said. "Patience is boring. Patience is strategic." A waiter passed with champagne. Arya took a glass she didn't plan to drink. Her hands needed something to do besides shake. More people approached. More introductions. More moments of recognition when someone realized who she was. Arya watched the information spread through the room like ripples in water. One person leaning to whisper to another, phones coming out, quick searches happening. By 7:15, half the room knew Dante Moretti had arrived with Victor Hale's soon-to-be ex-wife. At 7:20, a woman Arya didn't recognize approached with predatory interest. "Arya Stone," she said, voice dripping with false warmth. "I heard you were in town. Such a surprise." "Is it?" Arya asked. "Well, after your separation from Victor, we all thought you'd left the city entirely, tucked yourself away somewhere quiet." The woman's smile sharpened. "But here you are." With Dante Moretti. How fascinating. Dante's hand found Arya's waist. Fascinating is one word for it. The woman laughed, brittle and sharp. Victor must be beside himself. Must he? Arya kept her expression neutral. Oh, definitely. I mean, losing you was one thing, but losing you to... She caught herself, glanced at Dante. Well, it's quite the development. If you'll excuse us, Dante said pleasantly, I see someone I need to speak with. He steered Arya away before the woman could respond. Vulture, he muttered. She's not wrong, though. Victor is going to lose his mind. Good, that's the point. At 7:25, the lights dimmed slightly. A voice came over the sound system, asking everyone to take their seats for dinner. The crowd began migrating toward tables arranged throughout the ballroom. Arya and Dante were seated at table 3, close to the stage, visible to everyone. Marco was already there, along with 2 investors Arya recognized, and a tech CEO she'd met once at a conference. Ms. Stone, the CEO said as she sat, I didn't realize you were attending tonight. Last-minute decision, Arya said, echoing Dante's earlier words, and with quite the date. The CEO glanced at Dante. Congratulations on the engagement. Thank you, Dante said. Arya saw the CEO doing math, trying to figure out the timeline. How long had she been separated from Victor? How quickly had she moved on to Dante? What did it mean? Let him wonder. Let them all wonder. At 7:28, Victor took the stage. Arya's breath caught despite herself. He looked good. He always looked good. That was part of his appeal. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect smile as he tapped the microphone and waited for the room to quiet. Good evening, he said. Thank you all for being here tonight. His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who thought he'd already won. This year has been extraordinary for Hale Enterprises, Victor continued. Our expansion into European markets exceeded projections by 40%. Our partnership with Castellan on Industries has opened doors we never imagined possible. And our upcoming ventures promise to be even more ambitious. Arya's fingernails dug into her palms. Our expansion, our partnership, our ventures. He was still doing it, still taking credit. I want to thank my incredible team, Victor said, gesturing to a table where his senior executives sat. None of this would be possible without their dedication and innovation. Lena was watching from the front row, her expression adoring. Arya wanted to throw something. Dante's hand covered hers under the table. Breathe. She did. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Victor kept talking, spinning story after story about the company's success. The audience was eating it up, nodding, smiling, a few people even applauding at certain points. At 7:43, Jessica Chen appeared at Arya's shoulder and leaned down to whisper, 2 minutes. You ready? Arya nodded, not trusting her voice. Jessica disappeared. Arya watched her make her way to a spot near the stage, phone in hand. On stage, Victor was wrapping up. So, as we look ahead to next year and beyond, I'm excited to announce every screen in the ballroom suddenly lit up. The massive displays on either side of the stage. The monitors scattered throughout the room for overflow seating. Even some people's phones if they downloaded the event app. All of them showing the same thing. A presentation titled The Real Architect, Intellectual Property Claims Against Hale Enterprises. The murmurs started immediately. Confused, curious, alarmed. Victor stopped mid-sentence, stared at the screens. His face went from confident to confused to pale in the space of 3 seconds. What? He started. Jessica's voice came over the sound system, calm and clear. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Chen, and I represent Ms. Arya Stone in her lawsuit against Hale Enterprises and Victor Hale, personally. The room exploded into whispers. Victor found Arya in the crowd. Their eyes locked. She watched the realization hit him, watched him understand what was happening, what she was doing. Tonight, Jessica continued, we're presenting evidence that the majority of Hale Enterprises' most successful ventures were not conceived, developed, or executed by Mr. Hale, but by Miss Stone during their marriage, work for which she was never credited, compensated, or acknowledged. The screens changed. Now they showed contracts, old ones, with Aria's signature assigning her intellectual property to Hale Enterprises. Emails between her and various board members proving she'd been the point person on deals Victor claimed as his own. Financial records showing payments made to consultants and strategists, payments that had actually been routed to Aria through shell companies Victor had set up to hide her involvement. That's not... Victor grabbed the microphone. This is completely... The Castellan merger... Jessica cut him off, her voice loud enough to override his. Proposed by Ms. Stone in March of 2021. Documentation shows she conducted all primary negotiations, she structured the deal, she identified and resolved the regulatory hurdles. Mr. Hale signed the papers and took the credit. The screen showed more proof. Aria's notes, her strategy documents, her risk assessments. Whispers turned to open conversation. People were pulling out phones, taking pictures of the screens, recording video. The European expansion, Jessica continued. Again, Ms. Stone's work. She has the market research, the partnership agreements, the original business plan, all in her handwriting, all dated months before Mr. Hale announced the initiative. Victor's face had gone from pale to red. This is a violation of... Someone shut those screens off. Nobody moved to help him. The offshore investment strategy, the tech sector pivot, the restructuring of the debt portfolio that saved this company from bankruptcy in 2022. Jessica's voice was relentless. All Ms. Stone, all unpaid, all uncredited. Aria sat perfectly still, her champagne untouched, watching Victor unravel on stage. Aria! He spotted her in the crowd, pointed. You're behind this? You think you can just... I think I can reclaim what's mine, Aria said, standing slowly. Her voice carried in the sudden quiet. I think I can stop letting you profit from my work. And I think everyone in this room deserves to know who actually built Hale Enterprises. The silence was absolute. Victor stared at her. You're insane. Lena, tell them. Tell them she's lying. Every head in the room turned to Lena, who'd gone white as paper. Lena started, then stopped. Tell them, Victor demanded. I don't know about any of this, Lena said weakly. Of course you don't, Aria said. You're 24. You've been with the company for 8 months. You have no idea what went into building it because you weren't there. She turned to address the room. But I was. Every late night, every crisis, every impossible deadline. I was there doing the work while Victor took the credit. That's not true, Victor said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Then explain the contracts, Jessica said. Explain the emails. Explain why Ms. Stone's signature is on every major strategic document from the past 5 years. Victor opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He had nothing. Marco was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Dante sat back in his chair, watching Victor with the detached interest of someone observing a particularly fascinating disaster. Ms. Stone is filing for divorce, Jessica continued, and simultaneously pursuing legal action to reclaim her intellectual property and receive fair compensation for her contributions to Hale Enterprises. We estimate the value of her uncredited work at approximately $200 million. Gasps throughout the room. 200! That's absurd! Victor found his voice again. You can't just... We have documentation for every penny, Jessica said, including the shell companies you created to hide payments to her, including the ND as you made her sign, including the contracts you pressured her into that assigned her work to the company without fair compensation. The screens changed again. Now they showed financial records, proof of the shell companies, proof of the payments, proof of everything Jessica was claiming. Victor. A man stood from one of the front tables. Richard, the one who'd greeted Dante earlier. Is this true? She's exaggerating, taking things out of context. Did you or did you not have your wife sign over her intellectual property rights? Richard's voice was sharp. Victor hesitated too long. Answer the question, another investor called out. It was, we were married. Community property. It's all community property that you hid from the board, Jessica said. Community property that you claimed was your own work in official company documents. Community property that you used to secure investments under false pretenses. More gasps, more whispers. Aria watched it spread, the doubt, the anger, the realization that they'd all been lied to. These were people who valued honesty in business, who built empires on trust and reputation. Victor had violated both. "I want a full audit," someone called out. "Seconded," another voice. "This is a witch hunt," Victor shouted. This is one bitter woman with an axe to grind." "This is one woman with documentation," Jessica corrected. "Documentation will be filing with the court on Monday morning. Documentation will be sharing with the SEC. Documentation that proves Mr. Hale has been committing fraud." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Fraud. Victor's face crumpled. For a second, Arya saw the man she'd married, vulnerable, human, capable of fear. Then his expression hardened into something ugly. "You'll regret this," he said, looking directly at her. "I'll make sure you regret this." "Is that a threat, Mr. Hale?" Dante stood smoothly. "Because I'm sure everyone here would be very interested to hear you threatening your ex-wife in public." Victor seemed to notice Dante for the first time, really notice him. His eyes widened. "You," he breathed. This is why you're with him. This whole thing is about me taking back what you stole," Arya said. "Dante has nothing to do with it except that he treats me like an equal partner instead of a dirty secret." The room was dead silent now. 400 people watching a marriage dissolve in real time. "I loved you," Victor said, and for a second his voice cracked. "I gave you everything. You gave me nothing I didn't earn. And then you threw me away for someone younger." Arya's voice was steady. "Don't talk to me about love, Victor. You don't know what it means." Victor looked like he'd been slapped. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Around them, phones were out everywhere, recording, photographing, live streaming his humiliation to thousands of people who weren't even in the room. "You can't do this," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "We had an agreement. A marriage." "Had," Arya repeated. Past tense. "You ended it the moment you decided Lena was a better option." Lena made a small sound from the front row, something between a gasp and a sob. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, and Arya felt that flicker of pity again. The girl had been stupid, yes, but Victor was the one who'd manipulated both of them. "Ms. Cross," Jessica's voice cut through the chaos. "You're listed as executive assistant to Mr. Hale. Can you confirm that you've been having an affair with him for the past 7 months?" Lena's face went crimson. That's private. Not when it's relevant to a divorce proceeding and a fraud investigation." Jessica's tone was matter-of-fact. "Did you or did you not engage in a romantic relationship with Mr. Hale while he was still married?" "Don't answer that," Victor snapped. "Lena, don't say anything." "Yes." Lena's voice was small. "Yes, we are." She looked at Victor, desperate. Tell them we're together. Tell them it wasn't just—" "Lena, shut up." Victor's voice was harsh now, all pretense of affection gone. Arya watched the girl's face crumble, watched her realize what Arya had known for weeks, that Victor didn't love her. Victor loved what she represented: youth, admiration, someone who didn't know enough to question him. "You said," Lena's voice broke, "you said you loved me. You said after the divorce, there's not going to be anything left," Victor shouted. "Can't you see what she's doing? She's destroying everything." The room had gone from shocked whispers to open staring. This was better than any reality show, any soap opera. This was real blood in the water. Richard stood again. "Victor, I think you should step down from the podium. We need to discuss this with the board." "The board?" Victor laughed, wild and sharp. "The board doesn't know anything. Half of you wouldn't have your positions if it weren't for me. If it weren't for your wife," another board member corrected, "a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that could cut glass." "Apparently." "Ex-wife," Arya said quietly. "Almost." The woman, Catherine something, Arya couldn't remember her last name, turned to look at her directly. "Ms. Stone, is everything Ms. Chen said accurate? You were responsible for the strategic initiatives Mr. Hale claimed." Arya stood. The room seemed to tilt for a second, then steadied. "Yes." "All of them?" The Castellan merger, the European expansion, the debt restructuring, the offshore investments, the tech pivot. Arya's voice was clear, steady. I have emails, documents, recordings of strategy sessions. I have everything. Catherine nodded slowly. Then we have a serious problem. We don't have a problem, Victor said desperately. It's a marital dispute, community property. It's all legal. Fraud is never legal, Jessica said. And claiming sole credit for work someone else did to secure investor funding is textbook fraud. The SEC is going to have a field day with this. 3 more board members stood, then 5, then the entire table. We need an emergency session, Richard said. Tonight, before this goes any further. It's already gone further than you think, Marco called out cheerfully. He held up his phone. This is trending on 3 different platforms. Hashtag Hale Enterprises Scandal. Hashtag Fraud at the top. My personal favorite. Hashtag Arya Stone Revenge. Victor turned to look at Marco, his expression murderous. You're behind this. You and her. Oh, I'm not behind anything. I'm just enjoying the show. Marco took a sip of champagne. Though I did maybe mention to a few journalists that tonight's gala might be newsworthy. Hope you don't mind. Journalists? Victor's voice went up an octave. You invited journalists? Didn't have to. They followed the trending tags. Marco grinned. Turns out people love a good downfall story. Victor looked around the room wildly, as if searching for an ally. His eyes landed on Dante. You, he said. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To humiliate me. To steal my company. I don't want your company, Dante said calmly. It's a mess. Too much debt, too little actual value. I want to work with someone who actually knows what they're doing. He glanced at Arya. Fortunately, I found her. She's using you, Victor said desperately. Can't you see that? She's using you to get back at me. No, Dante said. She's using her own considerable talents to reclaim what's hers. I'm just providing support. There's a difference. Victor opened his mouth, but whatever he was going to say was cut off by a new voice. Mr. Hale? A man in a dark suit had appeared near the stage. He looked official, too official. I'm Agent Morrison with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm going to need you to come with me. The room went silent. What? Victor stared at him. Now? I haven't even been charged with anything. Not arresting you, yet. But we have some questions about the claims Ms. Chen has made. Questions that need answering tonight. Agent Morrison's expression was neutral. You can come voluntarily, or we can make this more formal. Victor looked at Lena, at the board, at Arya. His face was gray, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. This isn't over, he said to Arya. You think you've won, but this isn't... Mr. Hale, Agent Morrison said. Let's go. Security materialized, real security, not the hotel kind, and escorted Victor off the stage. He was still talking, still protesting, but his voice faded as they led him toward the exit. Lena stood, stumbling in her heels, trying to follow. Victor, wait. I'll come with you. He didn't even look back. She stopped in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by 400 people, and seemed to realize what had just happened, what she'd lost, what she'd never really had. Then she turned and ran, sobbing, toward the bathroom. Arya watched her go and felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness where something should have been. The room exploded into conversation. Everyone talking at once, phones out, the board clustering together in heated discussion. Jessica was suddenly at Arya's elbow. We need to leave, she said quietly. Before the press gets here, they will get here. Already here, Marco said, nodding toward the entrance where several people with cameras and press badges were arguing with hotel security. Back exit? This way. Dante put his hand on Arya's back, guiding her through the crowd. People tried to stop them, investors wanting to talk, board members with questions, opportunists smelling blood in the water. Dante moved through them like water, polite but implacable. They made it to a service corridor, then down 2 flights of stairs to a side exit that opened onto an alley. The car was already waiting. How did you... Arya started. I planned for contingencies, Dante said. They got in. Marco squeezed in beside them. Jessica climbed into the front seat. The driver pulled away just as the first reporters rounded the corner. Nobody spoke for the first few blocks. Arya watched the city lights blur past and tried to process what had just happened. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Victor was finished. His company was in shambles. His reputation was destroyed. She'd won. So why did she feel so hollow? That was beautiful, Marco said finally. Absolutely beautiful. Did you see his face when the screens lit up? I thought he was going to have a heart attack. The SEC showing up was perfect timing, Jessica said. I may have given them a heads up about tonight's presentation. May have suggested they might want to be on site. Arya turned to look at her. You planned that. I planned for the possibility. They made the decision to show up. Jessica's smile was thin. But yes, I may have implied that waiting would mean missing the show. You're terrifying, Marco said admirably. Thank you. They drove in silence for another few minutes. Arya's phone, which she'd turned off earlier, buzzed constantly in her purse. She ignored it. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere private, Dante said. Somewhere you can breathe for a few hours before the real chaos starts. The real chaos? This was just the opening act, Jessica said. Tomorrow the media circus begins. The lawsuits, the investigations, the depositions. It's going to get messy. How messy? Very. Victor's going to fight back with everything he has. His lawyers will drag this out as long as possible. The board is going to panic. Investors will flee. The whole thing might collapse before we even get to court. Arya felt something cold settle in her stomach. The company will fold? Possibly, probably. Jessica turned in her seat to look at her. Is that a problem? I don't know. Arya thought about all the people who worked for Hale Enterprises, the assistants, the analysts, the support staff who had nothing to do with Victor's fraud. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. They were going to lose their jobs anyway, Marco said. The company's been hemorrhaging money for 6 months. Victor's been covering it up with creative accounting and desperation. This just accelerates the inevitable. But nothing, Dante said quietly. You can't save people who are drowning if you're drowning too. Victor built a house of cards. You just knocked it down before it collapsed on its own and took you with it. The car pulled up to a building Arya didn't recognize. Dante got out first, offered his hand. She took it, let him pull her from the car. They were at a private club, the kind that didn't have a sign, just a discreet door with a doorman who nodded at Dante and stepped aside. Inside was all dark wood and leather, quiet conversations and expensive alcohol. Dante led them to a private room in the back. A table was already set with food. Simple things, bread and cheese and fruit, but high quality. Someone had anticipated they might be hungry. Arya sat, stared at the food, couldn't imagine eating. Drink this. Dante pressed a glass of something amber into her hand. You're in shock. I'm not. You are. Drink. She drank. It was whiskey, smooth and expensive, and it burned all the way down. The warmth helped. Marco collapsed into a chair. I can't believe we pulled that off. I mean, I knew we would, but actually seeing it happen... We haven't pulled anything off yet, Jessica said. This was just the public reveal. Now comes the hard part. The hard part? Arya found her voice. That wasn't the hard part? That was theater, necessary, satisfying, but ultimately just setup. Jessica pulled out her tablet, started scrolling through what looked like documents. Starting Monday, we're in court. Victor's lawyers are going to throw everything at us. Countersuits, motions to dismiss, claims that you violated NDAs. They're going to try to paint you as a vindictive ex-wife making false claims. But we have proof. We have proof he'll claim is taken out of context. Proof he'll say was joint work. Proof he'll argue is protected by marital privilege. Jessica looked up. I'm not saying we won't win. We will. But it's going to take months, maybe years, and it's going to be brutal. Arya felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. She'd been so focused on tonight, on the gala, on destroying Victor's image, that she hadn't really thought about what came after. I can't, she started. I can't do years of this. You won't have to, Dante said. Not alone. She turned to look at him. He was leaning against the wall, watching her with those dark, steady eyes. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means you have resources now, money, protection, a team." He gestured at Marco and Jessica. "It means you're not the woman who walked away from Victor's apartment 6 weeks ago. You're something different now." "What am I?" "Dangerous." The word hung in the air between them. Arya turned it over in her mind, testing it. Dangerous. Was that what she'd become? Marco's phone buzzed. He looked at it, laughed. "Oh, this is good. Victor's being questioned by the SEC. Someone leaked it. There's already photos." He held up his phone. Arya saw a grainy picture of Victor in the back of a government car, his face twisted with anger or fear or both. She waited to feel something. Triumph, satisfaction, joy. Nothing came. "I'm going to step outside, Chimet," she said, standing abruptly. "I need air." "Arya," Dante started. "I'm fine, I just need a minute." She left before anyone could follow her. The club had a back terrace, small, private, overlooking a garden that was too perfect to be real. Arya leaned against the railing and tried to breathe. She'd won. She'd destroyed Victor. She'd reclaimed her work, her dignity, her life. So why did it feel like losing? The door opened behind her. She didn't turn around. "Go away, Dante." "Can't. I'm contractually obligated to make sure you don't do anything stupid." His voice was light, but when he stepped beside her, his expression was serious. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything." Arya stared at the garden. "I thought I'd feel different." "Different how?" "Better. Satisfied. Something." She turned to face him. "I just humiliated my husband in front of 400 people. I destroyed his company, his reputation, everything he built. I should feel good about that." "Should you?" "He deserved it." "That's not what I asked." Arya was quiet for a moment. "I feel empty, like I just burned down my own house because there was a spider in it." "Did you love him?" Dante asked. "Really love him?" "I thought I did. 5 years ago, when we got married, I thought—" She stopped. "It doesn't matter what I thought. It matters if it's eating at you." Arya turned back to the garden. "I loved who I thought he was. The man who said he wanted a partner, who said we'd build something together, who made me feel like I mattered." She laughed, bitter. "Turns out that man never existed. I was just useful. A tool he could use and then discard when something better came along." "Lena's not better. She's younger, more compliant, less threatening." Arya's hands tightened on the railing. She won't question him or challenge him or remind him that he's not as smart as he thinks he is. "For what it's worth," Dante said, "you're worth 100 Lenas. That's not worth much when your husband doesn't agree." They stood in silence. The city hummed around them. Cars. Voices. The constant pulse of life continuing whether or not Arya's world was falling apart. "I killed people," Dante said suddenly. Arya's head snapped around. "What?" "Years ago, when I was building my organization. I killed people who got in my way, personally, with my own hands." His expression was unreadable. "You want to know what I felt afterward? I don't. Empty, just like you're feeling now, because revenge doesn't fill the hole someone leaves when they betray you. It just makes the hole more obvious." Arya stared at him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to know that what you're feeling is normal. You spent 5 years building a life with someone who threw you away. Destroying him doesn't unbreak your heart. It just means he can't hurt you anymore." "I don't have a broken heart," Arya said automatically. "No?" She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Did she? She'd been so angry for so long, so focused on revenge and reclamation and making Victor pay, that she hadn't stopped to examine what was underneath. "I don't know yet," she said finally. "I don't know what I feel anymore?" Dante nodded. "That's honest, at least." "Is this where you give me advice? Tell me it gets better?" "No, this is where I tell you it gets different. The pain shifts, the anger fades. Eventually you wake up and realize you've gone a whole day without thinking about the person who hurt you." He paused. "But that takes time. Tonight you're allowed to feel like garbage." Despite everything, Arya smiled. You're terrible at pep talks. I keep telling people that. Nobody listens. The door opened again. Marco stuck his head out. Sorry to interrupt, but Jessica says we need to make some decisions about Monday. Also, the press has figured out where we are. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they show up. Dante cursed quietly. How did they... Someone at the hotel saw which car we got into, tracked the plates. You know how it is. Arya straightened. What do I need to decide? Whether you want to file Monday morning or wait. Whether you want to make a statement to the press or go silent. Whether you want to push for a quick settlement or drag this out. Marco's expression was sympathetic. Heavy stuff. Give us 5 minutes, Dante said. Marco disappeared back inside. Arya took a breath, then another. I file Monday. I make a statement. Brief, professional, no details. And I push for settlement because I don't want to spend the next 2 years in court. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She turned to face Dante fully. Thank you for tonight, for all of it. We had a deal. We had a business arrangement. This was... She gestured vaguely. More than that. Dante's expression shifted into something she couldn't read. We should go back inside. Jessica's probably composing the statement already. He was right. When they returned to the private room, Jessica had her tablet out, fingers flying across the screen. I'm thinking something like this, she said, not looking up. Ms. Stone regrets that personal matters have become public, but stands by her claims and looks forward to resolving this matter through proper legal channels. Short, boring, gives them nothing to work with. Perfect, Arya said. We'll release it tonight. Let it sit over the weekend. File first thing Monday morning. Jessica looked up. You're going to need to disappear for a few days. Go somewhere the press can't find you. Let the initial frenzy die down. I have a place, Dante said. Upstate. Private. Secure. I can't just leave. You can and you will, Jessica said firmly. Trust me, you don't want to be in the city for the next 72 hours. It's going to be a feeding frenzy. Marco's phone buzzed again and again and again. He glanced at it, winced. She's right. Social media is losing its mind. You're trending worldwide. Someone made a meme already. A meme? Yeah, Victor's face when the screens lit up. It's... Actually, you probably don't want to see it. Arya laughed despite herself. It felt wrong, laughing, but also necessary, like pressure releasing from a valve. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll go upstate. I'll hide. But only for a few days. That's all we need, Jessica said. After that, you'll need to be visible again. Show them you're not running scared. They spent the next hour planning. Jessica drafted the statement, sent it to 3 major news outlets, and posted it on Arya's dormant social media accounts. Marco fielded calls from reporters, giving them all the same non-answer. Dante made arrangements for the upstate house, pulling strings Arya didn't want to examine too closely. By the time they left the club, through a back exit into a different car, it was past midnight. Arya felt wrung out, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. The drive to Dante's apartment was quiet. They'd left Marco at the club and dropped Jessica at her office. She had work to do, she said, and sleep was for people without billable hours. Inside the apartment, Arya kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch. The dress that had felt like armor now felt like a cage. She wanted out of it, out of this night, out of her own skin. I'm going to change, she said. Take your time. In the bedroom, Arya unzipped the dress with shaking hands. She'd held it together all night, through the confrontation and the chaos and the aftermath. Now, alone, she felt like she might fall apart. She changed into pajamas, washed her face, avoided looking at herself in the mirror. When she emerged, Dante had changed too. Out of the suit, into jeans and a t-shirt that made him look younger, more human, he'd poured 2 glasses of wine and was standing at the window looking out at the city. Can't sleep? She asked. Not yet. You? Too wired. He handed her a glass. They stood side by side at the window, watching the city that had just witnessed her victory and Victor's downfall. Do you regret it? Dante asked after a while. What? Any of it. The gala, The exposure, taking him down publicly. Arya thought about it, really thought about it. No, he deserved it. He deserved worse. But I wish I'd never had to do it. I wish he'd been the man I thought I married. I wish the last 5 years hadn't been a lie. She took a sip of wine. I wish I'd seen it sooner. If you'd seen it sooner, you wouldn't be who you are now. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. They were quiet for a while. Arya felt the exhaustion pulling at her, but also a strange energy, like her body couldn't decide whether to collapse or run a marathon. What happens now? She asked. Now you heal. You build. You become whatever you want to be instead of whatever someone else needed you to be. That sounds nice in theory. It's harder in practice, Dante agreed, but you'll figure it out. You're good at hard things. Arya finished her wine, set the glass down, turned to face him. Why are you really doing this? She asked. The truth. Not the business arrangement answer, not the partnership answer. Why? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Because I see myself in you. 10 years ago, I was where you are now, betrayed by someone I trusted, angry enough to burn the world down, smart enough to do it strategically. I had to figure it out alone. You don't. That's it? That's it. She didn't believe him. There was something else in his eyes, something he wasn't saying, but she was too tired to push. Thank you, she said again. Stop thanking me. We're partners now. Partners don't thank each other for doing their job. Is that what this is? Your job? His expression shifted. No, but I'm not ready to tell you what it is yet. The honesty surprised her. Arya studied his face. The hard lines, the dark eyes, the careful control that occasionally slipped to show something warmer underneath. Okay, she said finally, when you're ready. When I'm ready? They stood there for another moment, the city glittering below them, the future uncertain and terrifying and somehow full of possibility. Then Arya's phone buzzed. And again. And again. She pulled it out. 53 new messages, 112 notifications, 3 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. You should turn that off, Dante said. Probably. But she scrolled through anyway. Most were from people she hadn't talked to in years. Old colleagues, former friends, people who'd disappeared from her life when she married Victor and vanished into his shadow. Now they were reaching out, offering support, or asking questions, or just wanting to be part of the drama. One message made her stop. It was from Catherine, the board member who'd questioned Victor at the gala. 3 words. Call me Monday. What is it? Dante asked. The board wants to talk. About? I don't know, but probably about what happens to the company now. Do you care what happens to the company? Arya thought about it. Did she? She'd built it, yes. Poured 5 years of her life into making it successful. But it was also the cage she'd been trapped in, the monument to Victor's ego built on her invisible labor. I don't know, she said honestly. Ask me again after I've slept. Fair enough. She turned her phone off, dropped it on the counter. I'm going to bed, she said. Wake me if the world ends. The world already ended, Dante said. This is just the cleanup. Arya laughed, a real laugh this time, not bitter or hollow. You really are terrible at this. I know. She left him at the window and went to bed. The sheets were cool, the mattress soft. She closed her eyes and waited for sleep. It didn't come. Instead, her mind replayed the night on a loop. Victor's face when he saw the screens, Lena's tears, the whispers and the stares, and the moment when she'd stood up and claimed everything she'd built. She'd won. She'd actually won. So why did it still feel like something was missing? Arya woke to sunlight burning through curtains she'd forgotten to close. Her head throbbed dully, and her mouth tasted like regret and expensive wine. She checked her phone out of habit before remembering she'd turned it off. Smart choice. Past Arya had been thinking ahead. The apartment was quiet. She padded out to the kitchen and found a note on the counter in Dante's precise handwriting. Gone to handle some things. Coffee's ready. Don't turn your phone on. D. The coffee was still hot. Arya poured a cup and carried it to the window. Sunday morning in the city looked deceptively normal. People walking dogs, joggers on the street below, couples heading to brunch. Like the world hadn't just watched her demolish her husband's empire on live social media. She should feel something: triumph, relief, vindication. Instead, she just felt tired. Her phone sat on the counter like a bomb. She stared at it for a full minute before giving in and powering it on. The notifications came in waves, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Her email was flooded. Her social media accounts, dormant for years, had exploded with followers, comments, messages from strangers offering support or condemnation or marriage proposals from men who thought destroying your ex-husband was attractive. She scrolled through, numb, until one email caught her eye. The subject line was simple: "We need to talk. Catherine Reeves, Hale Enterprises Board." Aria opened it. "Mrs. Stone, I'm sure you're inundated with messages, so I'll be brief. The board met in emergency session last night. Victor has been placed on indefinite leave pending the SEC investigation. We need leadership immediately, and frankly, you're the only person who knows how this company actually runs. Can we meet? Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. I think you'll want to hear what we're proposing. Catherine Reeves." Aria read it twice, then a third time. They wanted her back, not as Victor's shadow, but as, what, CEO? Consultant? The woman who cleaned up his mess? She was still staring at the email when Dante walked in, carrying bags that smelled like breakfast. "You turned your phone on," he said. "You're not the boss of me." "No, but I'm the person trying to protect you from making decisions while you're still processing trauma." He set the bags on the counter. "What's the damage?" Aria showed him the email. Dante read it, his expression unreadable. "Are you going to meet with her?" he asked. "I don't know. Should I?" "That's not my decision." "But what do you think?" Dante was quiet for a moment. "I think Catherine Reeves is smart, ruthless. She didn't get on that board by being nice. If she's reaching out, it's because she sees an opportunity." "For her or for me?" "Both, probably." He pulled containers from the bags, eggs, bacon, something that looked like pastries. "The question is whether you want what she's offering." "I don't even know what she's offering." "Then find out. Meet with her. Listen, you don't have to commit to anything." He handed her a fork. "But eat first. Low blood sugar makes bad decisions." The food was good, better than good. Aria hadn't realized how hungry she was until she started eating. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that felt earned rather than awkward. "Jessica called while I was out," Dante said eventually. "The statement went well. Measured response from the press, mostly supportive. A few outlets are trying to paint you as vindictive, but that was expected." "What about Victor?" "Still being questioned. His lawyers are scrambling. Marco says the board is already distancing themselves, canceling appearances, issuing statements about their commitment to transparency." Dante's expression was grim. "He's finished, Aria. Even if the SEC doesn't charge him, his reputation is destroyed." "Good," Aria said automatically. Then quieter. "Is it wrong that I don't feel good about it?" "No, it means you're human. I wanted this. I wanted him to lose everything. Wanting something and enjoying it are different things." Dante refilled her coffee. "You spent 5 years with him. Some part of you probably still remembers the man you thought he was. That's not weakness, it's just memory." Aria thought about that. About Victor before the betrayal, before the lies. Had he always been this way? Or had success changed him? Had she? "I'm going to meet with Catherine," she said. "Okay. You don't think it's a bad idea?" "I think you need to hear what she has to say. Then you can decide if it's a bad idea." Dante stood, started clearing the containers. "Besides, you're going to go crazy sitting here analyzing everything. Might as well be productive." "We're supposed to go upstate, hide from the press." "We can go after the meeting. Jessica said Monday morning, right? Meet Catherine at 10, file the paperwork at noon, leave town by 2. He glanced at her. "Unless you want to cancel the meeting." "No. I want to know what she wants." "Then we'll find out." The rest of Sunday passed in a strange suspension of reality. Aria tried to relax, couldn't, tried to read, gave up. Finally, she pulled out her laptop and started going through her old files. 5 years of work on Hale Enterprises. Strategies and projections and analysis that Victor had claimed as his own. Looking at it now, with fresh eyes, she could see how good it was. How comprehensive. How much value she'd created. No wonder Victor had fought so hard to keep her hidden. If anyone had known she was the architect, they would have asked why she wasn't the one in charge. "What are you doing?" Dante asked, looking over her shoulder. "Remembering what I'm worth." He smiled. "Good. Don't forget it tomorrow." That night, Arya slept better. Not well, but better. She dreamed of boardrooms and contracts and a version of herself that wore power like the midnight blue dress. Visible, undeniable, sharp enough to cut. Monday morning arrived too fast. Arya dressed carefully, a suit this time, charcoal gray with clean lines. Professional, serious. The kind of outfit that said she was here to talk business, not to apologize or explain. Dante drove her to Catherine's office. Not Hale Enterprises. That would have been too obvious, too risky with press camped outside the building. Instead, Catherine had suggested a law firm downtown where she kept a secondary office. "Want me to come up?" Dante asked as they pulled up to the building. "No, this is something I need to do alone. Call if you need an extraction." Arya smiled despite her nerves. "It's a business meeting, not a hostage situation." With Catherine Reeves, sometimes there's not much difference. The law firm occupied the top 3 floors. Catherine's office was on 48, with views that rivaled Dante's. She stood when Arya entered, a tall woman with sharp cheekbones and silver hair cut in a severe bob. "Miss Stone, thank you for coming." "Ms. Reeves." "Catherine, please, sit." Arya sat. Catherine poured coffee from a French press without asking if she wanted any. "I'll get straight to the point," Catherine said. "Hale Enterprises is in crisis. Victor's gone, effectively, if not officially yet. The SEC is investigating. 3 major investors have already pulled funding. The stock price dropped 40% when trading opened this morning." "I'm aware." "What you might not be aware of is that the board met for 6 hours last night. We reviewed everything Jessica Chen presented. We talked to our lawyers, our accountants, our PR team." Catherine leaned back in her chair. "The consensus is that Victor built this company on fraud. Your fraud, specifically. Your work that he claimed as his own. That's correct. Which means legally, morally, and practically, you have a better claim to leadership than anyone currently on staff." Catherine's eyes were sharp. "We want to offer you the CEO position." Arya had expected this, had suspected it since reading the email, but hearing it spoken aloud still felt unreal. "Why?" she asked. "Because you're the only person who can save this company. You know the strategy, the deals, the relationships. You built it. You can rebuild it. Or I could let it collapse and start fresh somewhere else." "You could," Catherine agreed. "Dante Moretti would certainly be happy to have you. But is that what you want? To let Victor's incompetence destroy something you spent 5 years creating?" It was a good argument, a smart argument. Arya could see the play, appeal to her pride, her ownership, her desire to see her work survive. "What are the terms?" she asked. Catherine slid a folder across the desk. "CEO position, full executive authority. Salary commensurate with the role. We're talking 7 figures, plus stock options. You'd report to the board, but given that most of the board is in cover-your-ass mode right now, you'd have significant autonomy." Arya opened the folder. The numbers were impressive, more than impressive. They were life-changing money. "And what do you get out of this?" she asked. "A company that doesn't implode. A CEO who actually knows what she's doing. And personally?" Catherine smiled, thin and sharp. The satisfaction of watching the men who enabled Victor's fraud have to answer to the woman they ignored for 5 years. "You didn't ignore me." "No, but I didn't speak up either. I saw hints of what was happening, saw how the best ideas always came from Victor's team, but never had a name attached. I should have asked questions." Catherine's expression hardened. "Consider this my apology and my attempt at restitution." Arya studied the older woman. Catherine Reeves had a reputation, brilliant, ruthless, intolerant of incompetence. If she was offering this, she meant it. "I need to think about it," Arya said. "Of course." But we need an answer by end of week. The company is hemorrhaging money and credibility. Every day without leadership costs us. I understand. Do you? Catherine leaned forward. Because I need you to understand something else. If you take this job, you're walking into a war zone. The press will tear you apart. Victor's allies, and he has them, despite everything, will fight you. Some of the staff will resent you. It will be brutal. I'm aware. Are you? Because Saturday night was theater. This would be real. Day after day of fighting, of proving yourself, of dealing with people who think you slept your way into the position or manipulated your husband or whatever narrative makes them feel better about their own complicity. Catherine's voice was hard. I'm offering you a crown, Arya, but crowns are heavy, and people will do everything they can to knock it off your head. Arya thought about the gala, about standing in front of 400 people and claiming her work, about the hollow feeling afterward, the sense that revenge was just the beginning, not the end. Let me ask you something, she said. If I take this job and turn the company around, make it profitable, successful, legitimate, what happens to Victor? He'll have failed, publicly, completely. While you succeeded with the very thing he tried to steal. Catherine smiled. I thought revenge was your goal. It was, but now I'm wondering if there's something better. Like what? Like building something that's actually mine. Not fixing Victor's mess, not saving his company. Mine. Arya closed the folder. I appreciate the offer, Catherine, truly, but I don't think this is what I want. Catherine's eyebrows rose. You're turning down CEO of a Fortune 500 company? I'm turning down CEO of Victor's company. There's a difference. Arya stood. I spent 5 years in his shadow. I'm not interested in spending the next 5 cleaning up his disaster. Even if it means watching the company collapse? Even then. Arya felt something settle in her chest. Certainty, maybe, or just clarity. I built it once. I can build something better. Catherine studied her for a long moment. Then she laughed. A real laugh. Surprised and genuine. You know what? I believe you. She stood, extended her hand. For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake, but I respect it. Arya shook her hand. Thank you for the offer. If you change your mind, I won't. She left Catherine's office feeling lighter than she had in days. In the elevator down, she pulled out her phone and texted Dante. Done. Meet you outside. He was waiting by the car, leaning against it like he had all the time in the world. How did it go? He asked. They offered me CEO. And? I said no. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Why? Because I don't want to fix Victor's mess. I want to build something new. She got in the car. Something that's mine from the beginning. Dante slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. They drove to Jessica's office next. The lawyer was waiting with a stack of papers that needed signatures. Divorce filings, intellectual property claims, financial disclosures. Arya signed until her hand cramped. This is just the beginning, Jessica warned. Victor's lawyers will file counter motions. We'll be in court for months. I know. And you're sure about turning down the CEO position? Because that would have given us significant leverage in negotiations. I'm sure. Jessica studied her. Okay, your life. But for the record, I think you're crazy. You're the third person to tell me that today. Then maybe listen. Or maybe I'm the only sane one and everyone else is crazy. Arya finished the last signature. What's next? Now we wait for Victor's response. He has 30 days to file. Then we start discovery, depositions, the whole circus. Jessica gathered the papers into neat stacks. In the meantime, I'd suggest you disappear for a while. Let the media frenzy die down. Let Victor panic. Already planned. We're going upstate. Good. Stay there as long as you can stand it. Come back when you're ready to fight. The drive upstate took 3 hours. Arya watched the city fade into suburbs, suburbs into farmland, farmland into forest. Dante's place turned out to be a house on a lake. Modern, but understated, all glass and wood, and views of water that stretched to the horizon. "This is where you hide from the world?" Arya asked as they pulled up. "This is where I remember what matters." Inside was furnished simply, comfortable without being ostentatious. There was a fire already laid in the fireplace, food stocked in the kitchen, towels in the bathroom. "How long are we staying?" Arya asked. "As long as you need." She walked to the window. The lake was calm, reflecting clouds and sky like a mirror. No people, no press, no questions she couldn't answer. "I should feel relieved," she said. "But you don't." "I feel like I'm running away." "You're not running, you're regrouping." Dante came to stand beside her. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Running is retreat. Regrouping is strategy." He paused. "What happened at Catherine's office?" "Really?" Arya told him, the offer, the terms, her refusal. As she spoke, she watched his reflection in the window, trying to read his reaction. "You think I made a mistake," she said when she finished. "No, I think you made the right choice for the wrong reasons." "What does that mean?" "It means turning down the CEO position because you want to build something new is smart. Turning it down because you're afraid of failing is not." Arya turned to face him. "I'm not afraid." "No?" "No, I'm just—" She stopped. Was she afraid of what? Failure? Success? Becoming like Victor? "I don't want to be defined by him anymore," she said finally. "Taking that job, running his company, even if I turned it around, I'd still be in his shadow, still be the woman who saved Victor Hale's empire. I want something that's mine." "Okay," Dante said. "That's it? Just okay." "What do you want me to say? That you're making a mistake?" "I don't think you are. That you should reconsider. You won't." He smiled slightly. "You've made your decision. Now you have to live with it." Very philosophical. I have my moments. They spent the rest of the afternoon settling in. Arya unpacked the small bag she'd brought, explored the house, tried to relax. It was harder than it should have been. 5 years of constant work had left her unable to sit still without feeling guilty. By evening, she was restless. Dante found her on the deck, staring at the lake as the sun set. "Can't settle?" he asked. "I keep thinking about what comes next, after the divorce, after the lawsuits, after everything settles." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I've spent 5 years building Victor's dream. What's mine? What do you want it to be?" "I don't know. Something that matters, something that helps people." She laughed. "That sounds naive. It sounds human. I'm good at strategy, at seeing patterns, finding solutions to complex problems. But for 5 years, I've used those skills to make rich people richer. Maybe I want to do something different." "Like what?" "Like, I don't know. Consulting for companies that actually need help. Startups run by people who have vision but not experience. Companies owned by women or minorities who get ignored by traditional investors." The ideas were forming as she spoke, crystallizing. "I could build a firm. Small at first, selective. Only take clients I actually believe in. That's not very profitable." "It doesn't have to be, not at first. I'll have the settlement from Victor. I'll have savings." She turned to look at Dante. "And I'll have a partner who said he wanted to work with me." "I did say that." "Did you mean it?" "I don't say things I don't mean." "Then invest in me, my firm, my vision." Arya felt energy building, the first real excitement she'd felt since the gala. "You want to diversify your holdings, legitimize your investments. This could do that." Dante studied her. "What's the pitch?" "Strategic consulting for emerging companies. I provide the expertise. You provide the capital and the network. We focus on businesses that traditional investors overlook. Women-owned, minority-owned, innovative, but risky. We take equity stakes in exchange for services. When they succeed, we profit. When they fail, we learn. Success rate on startups is maybe 30%. Success rate on startups with experienced strategic guidance is closer to 60. I've seen the data." Arya could feel it now, the shape of something new, something hers. "We'd be selective. Only companies where I see real potential. But when we win big. And when we lose, but..." Utans. We lose together. Dante was quiet for a long moment. The sun had set fully now, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Okay, I'll invest on 2 conditions. What conditions? 1. We're real partners. Equal equity, equal say. I'm not interested in being a silent investor who just writes checks. Agreed. And 2? 2. You stop questioning whether you deserve this. You built a company from nothing once. You can do it again, but only if you believe you can. Arya felt something tight in her chest loosen. Deal. They shook hands. It felt formal, official, the beginning of something new. Over the next few days, they planned. Dante had a laptop, a printer, and enough coffee to fuel a small army. They worked from morning until night, drafting business plans, identifying potential clients, building financial models. Arya felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. This wasn't Victor's vision. It wasn't someone else's dream. It was hers. On Wednesday, Jessica called. Victor filed his response, she said without preamble. It's ugly. How ugly? He's claiming you manipulated him, that you deliberately hid your involvement to avoid accountability, that the intellectual property belongs to him because you were compensated through the marriage, housing, lifestyle, etc. Jessica's voice was hard. He's fighting everything. Expected. Yeah, but it's still going to be brutal. His lawyers are good. This is going to court, Arya. Full trial. Maybe a year, maybe more. Arya looked at Dante, who was watching her from across the room. Okay, then we fight. You sure? Because you could still settle. Take a payout, sign an NDA, walk away. I'm sure. Okay, I'll start preparing for trial. Jessica paused. One more thing. The press found out about you turning down the CEO position. It's all over the news. See, some people are calling you crazy. Others are calling you brave. What do you call me? I call you my client, and I'm going to make sure you win. After she hung up, Arya sat in silence. A year of court battles. A year of Victor's lawyers picking apart her life. A year of being in the news, being judged, being analyzed. Having second thoughts? Dante asked. No, just first thoughts about what I actually signed up for. She stood, stretched. But I'm doing it anyway. Good, because I already started calling potential clients for your firm. You what? 3 companies, all women-owned, all struggling with strategy and scaling. I told them you might be interested in consulting. He handed her a list. Figured you could use the distraction. Arya looked at the names. A sustainable fashion company, a tech startup focused on accessibility, a food distribution network for underserved communities. These are perfect, she said. I know, that's why I picked them. She looked up at him. Dante Moretti, Mafia Boss and venture capitalist, who'd agreed to fake an engagement to help a stranger and ended up becoming, what? Partner, friend. Something else she wasn't ready to name. Thank you, she said. Stop thanking me. We're partners. This is what partners do. But it felt like more than that. It felt like someone seen her, really seen her, for the first time in 5 years. That night, Arya couldn't sleep again. She found Dante on the deck, staring at the lake. You too? She asked. Planning keeps me awake. What are you planning? How to destroy Victor's credibility without it looking like I'm involved. Jessica's good, but she's playing by legal rules. I don't have to. Dante, I'm not going to hurt him, not physically. But information has a way of surfacing when you know where to look. He glanced at her. Unless you'd rather I stay out of it. I should say yes. I should tell you to let the lawyers handle it. But I'm tired of playing by rules that only apply to me while Victor does whatever he wants. She leaned against the railing beside him. What kind of information? Financial records, proof of the shell companies, evidence of other deals where he took credit for other people's work. Turns out you weren't the only one. Dante's voice was cold. He's got a pattern. We just have to expose it. That could destroy him completely. Yes. You think I should feel bad about that? I think you'll feel however you feel, but you should make the choice consciously, not accidentally. Arya thought about Victor, about Lena's tears and the empty feeling after the gala and the year of court battles ahead. "Do it," she said. "Find everything, expose everything. I'm done protecting him from consequences." "You sure?" "I'm sure." They stood in silence, watching moonlight reflect off the water. Somewhere in the city, Victor was probably panicking, his lawyers strategizing, his world crumbling. And here, Arya was building something new, something better, something entirely hers. 3 months passed faster than Arya expected. 3 months of depositions and discovery, of building her consulting firm from nothing, of learning to sleep without dreaming about Victor's face at the gala. The nightmares had stopped around week 7. The guilt around week 9. By week 12, she'd stopped counting. The firm, Stone Strategic, because Dante had insisted she use her own name instead of hiding behind something generic, had taken its first 3 clients. The sustainable fashion company was scaling faster than projected. The accessibility tech startup had secured Series A funding. The food distribution network had expanded into 2 new cities. Arya's cut of the equity was modest but growing. More importantly, she was working on projects she actually believed in, with people who saw her as a partner, not a ghost. Dante's contacts had been invaluable. He'd introduced her to investors who actually showed up to meetings, lawyers who returned calls, accountants who didn't condescend. Being Dante Moretti's business partner opened doors that being Victor Hale's ex-wife never had. Being his fiancée, fake or otherwise, opened even more. They still hadn't addressed that. The engagement that was supposed to be temporary, strategic, purely business. Except Dante still introduced her that way at events. Still wore the ring he'd bought himself, a simple platinum band that matched hers. Still looked at her sometimes like she was something more than a business arrangement. Arya told herself it didn't mean anything. Told herself she was too busy rebuilding her life to think about what came after the divorce was finalized. She was lying, but she'd gotten good at that over the years. The call from Jessica came on a Tuesday morning in early November. Arya was in the office she'd rented. Nothing fancy, just 3 rooms in a building downtown, reviewing projections for a potential 4th client. "We have a court date, Jessica said without preamble. "January 15th. Judge wants this resolved before the new fiscal year." "That's 2 months away." "I know. Which means we need to finalize our strategy now. Victor's lawyers are pushing for settlement. They know they're going to lose, but they want to minimize the damage." Arya set down her pen. "What are they offering?" $50 million. Full rights to your intellectual property. An NDA that would prevent you from discussing any of this publicly. $50 million to disappear quietly. Essentially, yes. 6 months ago, Arya might have considered it, might have taken the money and run. But 6 months ago, she'd been someone different, someone who still believed that being invisible was safer than being seen. "No," she said. "You sure? Because $50 million is nowhere near what I'm owed. And the NDA means I can't talk about how he stole my work, can't warn other people, can't tell my own story." Arya's voice was firm. "No deal. We go to trial." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Okay, then I need you back in the city. We've got 2 months to prepare, and I need you available for prep sessions, strategy meetings, the works." "I'll be there." After she hung up, Arya sat in the silence of her office. Through the window, she could see the city, busy, indifferent, full of people fighting their own battles. 2 months until she'd face Victor in court. 2 months to prepare for the moment when everything she'd built, everything she'd claimed, would be tested under oath. She should be nervous, terrified even. Instead, she felt ready. Dante found her that evening in the apartment they still shared, the same one they'd been living in since the gala, since the fake engagement that had somehow become real enough that neither of them had bothered to address it. "Jessica called me too," he said, pouring himself scotch. "Trial's in January." "I know. You okay?" "I'm fine, better than fine. I want this." He studied her. 3 months ago, you looked like you wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out. Now you look like you want to burn the courthouse down. Not the courthouse, just Victor's credibility. Fair distinction. Dante sat across from her. "There's something else. My people found more evidence about the shell companies. Turns out Victor's been doing this for years, taking credit for other employees' work, hiding payments, manipulating records. How many others? At least 6, maybe more. All people who left the company mysteriously or were fired suddenly. His expression was grim. We have testimony from 3 of them. They're willing to testify if Jessica wants them. Arya felt something cold settle in her stomach. He destroyed 6 people's careers? At minimum. Probably more who won't come forward. Dante leaned forward. This is bigger than just you and him, Arya. This is a pattern of fraud that goes back almost a decade. The SEC is expanding their investigation. The board is talking about criminal charges. Criminal? Wire fraud, tax evasion, possibly more. If even half of what we found is accurate, Victor could be looking at prison time. Arya should feel triumph, victory. Instead, she just felt tired. Do you ever wonder if we went too far? She asked quietly. No. Not even a little? Dante was quiet for a moment. I've done things I regret. Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Made choices I can't take back. But helping you reclaim what's yours. Exposing someone who built an empire on stolen work? He shook his head. That's not something I regret. That's justice. Even if it destroys him, he destroyed himself. We just made sure people noticed. Arya thought about that. About responsibility and consequences and the difference between revenge and accountability. She'd spent so long focused on taking back what Victor stole that she hadn't considered what would be left of him afterward. I saw Lena, she said suddenly. Last week, at a coffee shop downtown. Dante's eyebrows rose. And she looked lost. Younger than I remembered. She tried to apologize, started crying, said she didn't know he was married when it started. Arya stared at her hands. I think she was lying, but I also think she believed her own lie. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. People rewrite history to make themselves the hero, or at least not the villain. She asked if I hated her. Do you? No, I feel sorry for her. She's 24. She thought she was in love with a powerful man who'd chosen her. Now she's the other woman in the scandal that destroyed his career. Arya looked up. I wanted her to suffer. Back at the gala, I wanted her to hurt the way I hurt. But now you're human enough to recognize she was a victim too. Was she, though? She still made the choice. Still slept with a married man. Still showed up to that gala wearing a dress that cost more than most people make in a month. She can be both. Victim and participant. The world's rarely simple enough for just one or the other. Dante finished his scotch. The question is, does it change anything? For you? Arya thought about that. Did it? Lena's pain didn't erase hers. Lena's poor choices didn't absolve Victor's worse ones. No, she said finally, it doesn't change anything. I'm still going to court, still going to win, still going to make sure everyone knows what he did. Then that's your answer. The next 2 months were brutal. Jessica put Arya through mock trials, hostile questioning, scenarios designed to break her composure. They practiced her testimony until she could recite it in her sleep, went through every document, every email, every piece of evidence that would be presented. Marco helped by playing Victor's lawyer, aggressive, condescending, designed to make her angry enough to make mistakes. So you claim you did all this work, he'd say, dripping contempt. But you never asked for credit, never demanded recognition. That's convenient, isn't it? I was told it was better for the company if I stayed in the background. By whom? By my husband, by Victor. But you have no proof of that conversation. I have 5 years of emails where he explicitly tells me not to attend meetings, not to speak to investors, not to put my name on documents. Emails that could be interpreted as a husband trying to protect his wife from a hostile business environment. Or emails that could be interpreted as a man systematically erasing his wife's contributions so he could claim them as his own. Marco would push harder. Jessica would interrupt, object, redirect. They'd go again and again, until Arya could handle anything they threw at her. Dante watched some of these sessions. Never participated. Jessica had said it would look bad, the fiancé coaching the witness. But he'd sit in the back of the conference room and observe. Afterward, he'd take her home and let her vent. I wanted to punch Marco today with these, she'd say. That's the point. I know it's the point. Doesn't make it less frustrating. Good. Use that frustration in court. Victor's lawyers are going to be worse than Marco. Let them make you angry, then use that anger to be precise. It was good advice. Arya learned to channel the rage into clarity, to let the questions fuel her instead of derailing her. By December, she was ready. The week before Christmas, Victor called. Arya stared at her phone, his name on the screen after months of silence, and almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. "What do you want?" she said. "Arya." His voice sounded rough, tired. "I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Anything you want to say can go through Jessica. Please, just 5 minutes, in person, somewhere public." She should say no, should hang up and block his number, but she found herself saying, "Where?" "The coffee shop, the one near our old apartment, tomorrow at 2. "Fine, 5 minutes." She hung up before he could say anything else. "You're not actually going," Dante said. He'd been standing in the doorway, had clearly heard this whole conversation. "I am." "Why?" "Because I want to hear what he has to say. What excuse he's come up with. What story he's telling himself to make this my fault. It's a bad idea. Probably, but I'm doing it anyway." She looked at him. "You could come with me. Sit at a different table, make sure he doesn't try anything." "He's not going to try anything in a public coffee shop." "Then there's no harm in you being there." Dante sighed. "Fine, but if he makes you cry, I'm breaking his jaw." "Deal." The next day, Arya arrived at the coffee shop 5 minutes early, picked a table by the window where anyone could see them, ordered coffee she wouldn't drink. Victor arrived exactly at 2. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered, his suit hanging loose on his frame, dark circles under his eyes. He'd aged a decade in 3 months. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting across from her. "You have 5 minutes. I want to settle. Jessica told me. I said no." "Arya, please, this trial, it's going to destroy both of us. The media, the testimony, everything that comes out. Everything that comes out will be the truth. If you're afraid of the truth, that's your problem." Victor flinched. "I made mistakes. I know that. I should have given you credit. Should have treated me like a partner instead of an assistant. Should have respected my work. Should have not slept with your secretary." Arya's voice was flat. "Yes, Victor, you should have done a lot of things." "I loved you." "No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm going to lose everything, aren't I?" "Yes." "The company, my reputation, possibly my freedom if the SEC charges me." "Yes." "And you're okay with that?" Arya thought about the question, really thought about it. Was she okay with destroying the man she'd once loved, with watching him lose everything? "I'm not doing this to destroy you," she said finally. "I'm doing this because you stole from me. You took 5 years of my work, my ideas, my life, and you claimed it as yours. You made me invisible. You threw me away when I stopped being useful." She met his eyes. "You did this to yourself, Victor. I'm just making sure you face consequences." "I could fight this. Drag it out for years. Make it so expensive and ugly that... Then do it. Fight, drag it out. Make it ugly." Arya stood. "But you're still going to lose because I have proof, I have witnesses, and I have something you never had. The truth." She walked out before he could respond. Dante was waiting in his car across the street. She got in without a word. He started driving. "You okay?" he asked after a few blocks. "Yeah, actually I am." Arya felt lighter somehow, like seeing Victor, broken and desperate and small, had finally closed something that had been open too long. He wanted to settle, said the trial would destroy us both. "And you said?" "I said let it." Dante smiled. "That's my girl." The words hung in the air between them. My girl, not my partner, not my business associate. My girl. "Dante, I know. We should talk about this. About us. About what this is." He kept his eyes on the road. "After the trial. When everything's settled. We'll figure it out." What if I want to figure it out now? Now you're focused on winning your case, on rebuilding your life, on proving that you're more than what Victor made you. He glanced at her. After you win, and you will win, then we can talk about what comes next. It should have frustrated her being put off like that. Instead, it felt like relief. One crisis at a time, one battle at a time. She could handle that. Christmas came and went quietly. Arya spent it with Dante, Marco, and Jessica, an odd collection of people who'd somehow become family. They exchanged gifts, drank too much wine, and didn't talk about the trial that was 3 weeks away. New Year's Eve, Dante threw a party. Small, selective, investors and business partners, and people who'd supported Arya's firm. She wore the midnight blue dress from the gala and felt like a different person in it, stronger, surer. At midnight, when everyone else was kissing their partners or toasting with champagne, Dante found her on the balcony. "Making a resolution?" he asked. "Trying to. Can't think of one that doesn't sound stupid. Try me. I want to stop being afraid of success, of failure, of being visible." She turned to face him. "For 5 years, I made myself small because I thought that's what love required. I want to be done with that." "That's not stupid. That's brave." "What's yours?" Dante was quiet for a moment. "I want to stop lying to myself about what I want." "And what do you want?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then he leaned in and kissed her, soft and deliberate and nothing like business. When he pulled back, Arya's heart was racing. "We said after the trial," she managed. "I said after the trial. You asked what I wanted. That's what I wanted." He smiled. "But you're right. After the trial. When you've won. When everything's settled. We'll figure this out properly. And if I don't want to wait, then don't. But know that when we do this, if we do this, I want it real. Not fake engagement real. Not business partner real. Actually, real." Arya felt something shift in her chest. "Okay. Okay? After the trial, we'll figure it out properly." They stayed on the balcony until the party wound down, talking about everything and nothing, the future hanging between them like a promise. January 15th arrived cold and clear. Arya dressed in a gray suit, professional, serious, the kind of outfit that said she wasn't here to apologize. Jessica met her at the courthouse steps. "Ready?" the lawyer asked. "As I'll ever be." Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Press in the gallery. Victor's lawyers at their table, looking confident and expensive. The board members scattered throughout, some supporting Arya, some covering their own asses, some just there to watch the show. Victor sat at the defendant's table, looking small and alone. Lena wasn't there. Neither were most of his friends. He'd burned through his allies faster than his money. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of testimony and cross-examination and evidence presented in meticulous detail. Jessica was brilliant, methodical, relentless, building the case piece by piece until even Victor's lawyers looked tired. Arya testified on day 2, answered every question with precision, didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't give them anything they could use against her. When Victor's lawyer tried to paint her as manipulative, "Isn't it true that you deliberately hid your involvement so you could claim credit later?" She met his eyes and said, "No, I hid my involvement because my husband told me to, because he said it was better for the company, because I trusted him." The other witnesses helped. 3 former employees testified about similar patterns: work stolen, credit claimed, careers destroyed when they objected. Financial experts walked through the shell companies and hidden payments. Even Marco testified about how he'd tried to poach Arya for years because everyone in the industry knew she was the real talent. Victor's defense was weak. He claimed community property, claimed she'd been compensated through lifestyle, claimed they'd built the company together, but the evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the contracts, the recordings of strategy sessions where Arya did all the talking while Victor took notes. On day 3, the judge called a recess. 2 hours later, Victor's lawyers requested a settlement conference. They offered $150 million, full rights to her intellectual property, no NDA, a public statement acknowledging her contributions. Jessica looked at Arya. "It's a good offer, better than we'd get if we let the judge decide." "What do you think?" "I think you've already won. The whole world knows what he did now. The trial's been live-streamed, reported on, analyzed by every business publication in the country. Taking the settlement just ends it faster. Arya thought about it, about dragging this out for weeks more, about the satisfaction of watching a judge rule in her favor versus the relief of being done. Counter offer, she said, $200 million, public apology, and he resigns from every board, every position, every company he's associated with, completely. Jessica smiled. I'll make the call. They settled for $180 million, a public apology, and Victor's complete resignation from Hale Enterprises and all affiliated boards. The judge approved it that afternoon. Outside the courthouse, Arya stood at the microphone facing a wall of cameras. I'm grateful for the resolution of this case, she said, reading from a statement Jessica had prepared. But more than that, I'm grateful for the opportunity to tell my story. For 5 years, I built something I believed in, only to watch someone else take credit. That's done now. The truth is out, and I'm moving forward with projects that are entirely mine. What about Victor Hale? A reporter shouted. Do you forgive him? Arya paused, thought about forgiveness, about whether it was something she owed him or something she needed for herself. I don't forgive him, she said finally, but I don't hate him either. I'm done with him, done letting him take up space in my life, done letting what he did define who I am. She looked directly at the camera. I'm building something new now, something better, and I'm doing it with my name on it. She stepped away from the microphone. Dante was waiting at the edge of the crowd. When she reached him, he took her hand. How do you feel? He asked. Free. They left the courthouse together. Behind them, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The story would dominate news cycles for days, maybe weeks. But Arya didn't look back. 6 months later, Stone Strategic had 12 employees, 8 active clients, and a waiting list of companies desperate for Arya's expertise. The sustainable fashion company had gone public. The accessibility startup had been acquired by a major tech firm for $200 million. Arya's equity stake alone was worth $20 million. She'd taken an office in the building where Dante kept his primary headquarters. Separate but connected. Partners in business and in life. The engagement had become real somewhere around March. They'd made it official in April, a quiet ceremony at the lake house with Marco and Jessica as witnesses. No press, no announcements, just them and the people who mattered. Arya kept her own name, kept her independence, kept building. Victor had disappeared from public life entirely. Last she'd heard, he was living in Boston, working for a mid-sized consulting firm under someone else's direction. The humiliation of going from CEO to middle management must have been crushing. Arya tried to feel bad about it, couldn't quite manage it. Some wounds heal, some don't. But you can build a life anyway. On a warm evening in late summer, Arya stood in the conference room of Stone Strategic, looking at a wall covered in photos of their client companies. Success stories. People she'd helped. Dreams she'd made real. Dante found her there, wrapped his arms around her waist. Reminiscing? He asked. Just thinking about how different everything is now. Better different? Much better. She turned in his arms. A year ago I was invisible. Now I'm unstoppable. She laughed. I was going to say visible, but I'll take unstoppable. You earned it. He kissed her forehead. Come on. Marco's here. He wants to celebrate the Castellan acquisition. We don't own Castellan. No, but 3 of our clients are buying pieces of it after it went up for sale. Marco thinks that's poetic justice. Marco thinks everything is poetic justice. True, but this time he's right. They walked out together. In the lobby, Marco was already opening champagne despite the fact that it was only 6 o'clock. To Arya Stone, he said when they joined him, who proved that the best revenge isn't just success, it's building something so good that everyone else's failure becomes irrelevant. They drank to that, to success and second chances and futures that belong to them. Later, alone in the apartment she now shared with Dante in the completely official, fully legal sense, Arya stood at the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Victor was probably still bitter, still angry, still convinced she'd stolen something from him instead of reclaiming what was hers. Let him think that. Let him rewrite history to make himself the victim. She knew the truth, she'd lived it, and she'd used it to build something that mattered. The phone buzzed. A text from one of her clients, a young woman starting a tech company focused on financial literacy for low-income communities. She'd just closed her seed round and wanted to thank Arya for the guidance. Couldn't have done this without you. You changed my life. Maya Arya smiled, typed back, You changed your own life. I just showed you the tools. That was the thing about power she'd learned. Real power wasn't about controlling others or taking credit or making yourself bigger by making others smaller. Real power was about building something that mattered, about using what you knew to help others grow, about being visible not because you needed validation, but because your visibility gave permission to others. Victor had never understood that. He'd thought power came from domination, from keeping others small so he could seem large. He'd been wrong. Arya had spent 5 years invisible, building someone else's dream. Now she spent her days visible, helping others build theirs. And the difference between being hidden and being seen, between being used and being valued, between being a ghost and being a force, made all the struggle worth it. She'd lost 5 years to Victor's ego, but she'd gained something better, herself, sharp and ambitious, and done apologizing for taking up space. The woman who'd stood in Victor's office 6 months ago, holding his phone with shaking hands, wouldn't recognize her now. That woman had been afraid, betrayed, broken. This woman was none of those things. This woman was free. And freedom, Arya had learned, was the best revenge of all. Dante came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me ended up being the best thing. Strange how? Victor's betrayal destroyed the life I thought I wanted, but it gave me the life I actually needed." She leaned back against him. "If he hadn't thrown me away, I never would have left. I'd still be in the shadows, building his empire, making myself small." "Do you regret any of it?" Arya thought about that. The pain, the rage, the months of court battles and sleepless nights, the moment at the gala when she'd watched Victor's world collapse. "No," she said finally, "I wish it hadn't happened, but I don't regret how I handled it. I don't regret taking back what was mine. I don't regret building something new." "Good, because you're brilliant at it." She turned to face him. "We're brilliant at it. Partners, remember?" "Partners," he agreed, and kissed her. Outside, the city hummed with life, millions of people fighting their own battles, building their own dreams, finding their own power. Somewhere out there, another woman was probably discovering her husband's betrayal. Another person was realizing they'd been made invisible by someone who claimed to love them. Arya hoped they found their way out, hoped they found their anger and their strength and their refusal to disappear, because that was the real story. Not revenge, not destruction, not even justice exactly. It was reclamation, taking back what was stolen, refusing to be erased, building something so undeniably yours that no one could ever take credit for it again. Victor had tried to make her invisible. Instead, he'd made her unstoppable. And that, Arya thought, was the best ending she could have asked for. Not because she'd destroyed him, though she had. Not because she'd won, though she had. But because she'd finally become exactly who she was always meant to be. Visible, powerful, and entirely her own. The rest was just details.